All right, back on the conversation. Another great guest for you guys, Jose Vasquez. He's the executive director of Common Defense. Jose, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jay.
No problems. So you're a veteran. Common Defense is an organization of U.S. veterans and military family members. Is it fair to call you guys a group that's for progressive veterans?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the core of our values is progressive vets. We're looking to organize that huge constituency that's out there.
So let's talk about how huge it is, because the common conception in American thought, mainly driven by corporate media, is that the military's, if not purely right-wing, predominantly right-wing. And maybe it is, I don't know. To me, it's in the polling, it's in the people's experiences. But you were in is it the Army for 15 years?
That's right,
yes. Yeah. So what's your experience and what's the experience of your organization in terms of how progressive or right-wing folks in the military are?
Yeah, well, this issue is right at the heart of our approach to this work. We call that the myth of the conservative veteran. There are about 19 million vets that are alive today, and based on our research, we can pretty confidently say that at least somewhere in the 6 to 8 million veterans across the country vote consistently Democratic. So we know that not all vets are, conservatives or on the right, but certainly the right has invested a lot more than we have on the left, frankly, in terms of organizing that constituency. And I think the GOP does a really good job of trying to co-opt that narrative. But we at Common Defense are here to counter that, and are finding that our message and our values are resonating with veterans across the country.
Right. Look, it's a matter of common sense. The military is really mixed races, right? So you've got Black, Latino, white, etc. And so we know demographically in the country that minorities tend to vote for Democrats more. So it just is like a really surface level. You think like, duh, of course there's a lot of people who vote Democrat in the military and that are veterans, right? Even if you don't go beyond that, but are the folks who vote right wing that are in the military, do you think, and I know we're just guessing here, but you have some experience in both being a veteran and in the military, but also in running this group. Do you think it's that the right wing is more like pro-war, pro-conflict, and this kind of macho attitude, whether it's actually masculine or not, is immaterial, but this myth of macho, etc. Do you think is that what drives some folks in the military to be more inclined to be right wing?
I could talk about this topic all day, Cenk. I think that first of all, folks that serve in the military, by and large, put politics aside and are there to do the job. And I think that regardless of people's political background, racial, ethnic background, when you put on that uniform, it means something to people, and they really take that seriously. Frankly, there are issues of sort of conservative and even extremist active duty personnel. That's an issue that the military is looking into in terms of white supremacists being in the ranks. I certainly experienced that when I was stationed at Fort Benning in Georgia. There were guys who had Confederate flags up in their barracks room, and that was, not really frowned upon at the time. We're talking back in the 90s. I think now it's not something that the military takes lightly, and I think the folks that are found to be connected to those kinds of political ideologies, are frankly finding themselves being put out of the military. I think the what you're talking about in terms of how this sort of narrative about veterans, that has everything to do with some veterans organizations, I think, that try to propagate that. But frankly, it's it has a lot to do with politicians trying to cozy up to the military and veteran community and use vets as props, for their political gains and for political purposes. And I would also say, Hollywood has a lot to do with people's conceptions of what it's like to serve in the military, and folks have a very narrow view of what that experience is like. I think it's understandable that people want to praise military personnel and veterans for their service, and we appreciate that. But I think it's also important to listen to the veterans' experiences, and what we do at Common Defense is mobilize, recruit, train veterans to tell their stories in effective ways, and to use that what we call the veteran mystique for good purposes.
So how do you think Hollywood skews it?
I mean, it's very narrowly focused. Just look at all the war movies, right? It's a white dude is usually the male lead, and the perception of wherever that particular soldier happens to be deployed is always entirely focused on the American soldier's perspective of the conflict. Very little nuance in terms of depictions of Iraq, depictions of Afghanistan, or the people of Iraq and Afghanistan. So I think that it's very one-sided. The whole Hollywood so white hashtag certainly applies to the way the military community has been portrayed. Everything from the lone survivor and the American sniper and go on. I can list dozens of movies where the lead is always a male, white male, and I think that that's a problem. But also, people's understanding of what it is to be in the military. I think everybody thinks that we're all kicking in doors and doing patrols in the streets, and that's just not the case. The military is a very complex institution. People have a lot of different connections to the theater of war. And in fact, some people fly drones all the way from Nevada. So I think that that perception of the military is very limited. And again, it's important to sort of listen to actual veterans and their stories.
Right. From my point of view, Lone Survivor was a goofy movie, but I thought the American Sniper and Zero Dark 30 were two of the worst movies I've ever seen. And it was like grotesque propaganda on killing the bad guys who were just generically Muslim and had it coming with no explanation, no nuance, no nothing. And by the way, I think it makes the American military look terrible. I think if you're anywhere else in the world and you watch American Sniper, you don't view that guy as the hero. You view him as the villain in that movie, and so it does our entire military a great disservice to paint him in that light. So I appreciate that. So you started the group during the Trump era, is that right?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, we were definitely in response to Trump. We started as a kind of organic movement online, frankly, as just a hashtag. It was just vets versus hate, and trying to counter the hate speech that Trump was spewing on the campaign trail. We quickly got into, kind of directly opposing his campaign, and so we started as a PAC. But now we're, a C4, advocacy organization, as well as a C3 training program. We have something called the Veterans Organizing Institute. Folks can check that out on commondefense.us. And we're here to again organize that block of veterans that we think share our progressive values, and really invest in their leadership and plug them into the work that veterans deeply care about, which frankly is not only about foreign policy and veterans issues. Vets are well-rounded and human beings. I have 2 children, so I care about education and healthcare, and certainly in the middle of a pandemic, veterans are deeply concerned about the climate crisis. And so, we are here to create a political home for veterans on the left. And, frankly, that hasn't existed for a long time in terms of a membership-based organization. And, we're 250,000 strong.
That's a lot of folks to sign up in a short period of time. So that's amazing work right there. But so Jose, how frustrated were you all in the Trump era when Trump would constantly attack the military more than any political figure of my lifetime, and specific veterans and specific members of the military and the military in general, and then he would be painted as a pro-military guy? Wasn't it like an amazing thing to see?
It's, cognitive dissonance at its best, Cenk. And the way he talked about John McCain, the way he called military folks, losers and suckers. Frankly, I don't understand how people can view Trump or any of the folks that are his followers as in any way supporting the military community and supporting the veteran community. This guy, I live in New York City, so I know what Trump's attitude towards veterans has been for a long time. He was one of the most vocal opponents to street vendors, many of whom are veterans themselves. And so, Trump doesn't care about the military, doesn't care about vets. Recently there was a story about Trump trying to sell veterans' medical records to private industry to sort of make money off of that, and that's just despicable, deplorable. And frankly, we got our start by opposing Trump when he said he was going to host a fundraiser instead of attending one of the primary debates. The Washington Post caught him in a lie. So we were able to push back on that.
All right, we got about 30 seconds left, but once you've got these 250,000 veterans sign up, what do you do with them? You organize them to do what?
We have done, like I said, we have a training institute. We have taken vets to the Hill to lobby members of Congress. We did a lot of work on the impeachment fight. Proud to say that we were central to ending the Forever War. And we had a whole Forever War pledge campaign during the presidential election. So we're here to plug vets in, train them how to make change in their communities.
All right, Jose Vasquez, Executive Director of Common Defense. CommonDefense.us or US, also the most logical name I've seen for a website. Jose, thank you for putting the organization together and for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Jane.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.